Here's a man who has worked widely in cinema, beginning with the release of Moby Dick, the great Herman Melville classic. Bradbury wrote the screenplay and adapted Moby Dick to the screen in 1956. And I'll share some anecdotes about that and how it connects to Fahrenheit 451 as I conclude my talk here. But so he started working with John Huston, the great American film director, and adapted Melville's classic, and since then has adapted his own books to the screen with limited success. Some have been very good, some have been quite poor. He has worked widely in television, which is ironic in some ways if you've read Fahrenheit 451 and you look at what he's saying about television in and of itself. But here's a man who's made a substantial living writing for TV. And people often ask him, aren't you a hypocrite if you lambaste the medium of television, yet you're making a living off of it? Most successfully, I would add, was his television show, The Ray Bradbury Theater, which ran on the HBO network during the very infancy of cable television. In the mid-1980s, when cable TV was just starting to take root, Bradbury, again, as he did with Fahrenheit 451, had the prescience, the vision to see that cable TV would be the future and HBO would be the future of dramatic TV, and launched his own TV series called The Ray Bradbury Theater. He was the executive producer on all 65 episodes, wrote all 65 episodes. They were all adaptations of his short stories. He won 12 Cable Ace Awards for that program, the highest honor in the cable television industry. But along with that television show, in 1958, if I can jump around here chronologically, Rod Serling, the creator of The Twilight Zone, came to him and said, I'm starting this television program called The Twilight Zone. And I have no experience in this this world of the fantastic. And you, at this point, having written The Martian Chronicles and, of course, Fahrenheit 451, are the recognized master of the macabre. Will you help me develop The Twilight Zone? And Bradbury went on to write 3 episodes of The Twilight Zone and help Serling really develop the series to what it would become. At the very same time, he was writing for Alfred Hitchcock, for Hitchcock's show, Alfred Hitchcock Presents. And so Bradbury has worked very successfully in television over the years. Along with the television work, he's worked throughout the 40s and 50s in dramatic radio, very successfully once again, adapting his short stories to old-time radio serials. In fact, in 1951, a young boy in Maine tuned into an old Philco Council radio and turned in and tuned through the static to hear a very frightening Martian story called Mars is Heaven, about a group of astronauts who land on the surface of Mars, and as they exit the rocket ship, they find all of their deceased loved ones there waiting for them. And the little boy listened to that with rapt attention, and his name was Stephen King. And he told me when I was doing my book that it was his first encounter really with at the hands of fear. I'm struggling here a little bit. His first encounter at the hands of fear was because of Ray Bradbury. That's a remarkable statement coming from the man who's recognized as the preeminent fear maestro in modern society, Stephen King, to say something of that magnitude in acknowledgement and tribute to Ray Bradbury. Along with the radio work, he's worked widely in theater. He's adapted his books to Broadway, in New York, to London, to stages in Los Angeles, all over the world, and done quite well. Has his own theater company, as I mentioned at the top, called the Pandemonium Theater in Los Angeles, with a play running as we speak. He has worked extensively in comic books. Fahrenheit 451, the graphic novel, was published just this past fall and was a New York Times bestseller. Yet again, here showing the longevity of this masterwork, and I think the longevity of this writer. He has worked widely in architecture. He's a young man who graduated from high school in 1938, never went to college, and has worked on architectural renderings for shopping plazas in Tokyo, in San Diego. The Horton Plaza in downtown San Diego is based completely on a Bradbury design. He designed the Glendale Galleria in Glendale, California. And most prominently, he worked personally with Walt Disney prior to Disney's passing on Epcot Center. Disney had this vision to build a World's Fair that would not be torn down. World's fairs were very central to Ray Bradbury's childhood, so they had this shared passion, and they worked together. And Epcot, of course, opened decades after Disney's passing, but Ray Bradbury was there, having designed the spaceship Earth. The geodesic dome, that is the iconic symbol of Epcot Center, is based completely on a Bradbury essay. And so he's done a marvelous amount of contributions to all walks of popular culture. In fact, his cultural accomplishments extend beyond the boundaries of planet Earth. In 1971, the Apollo 15 astronauts landed on the lunar surface and were charting the lunar craters and named a crater Dandelion Crater for Ray Bradbury's 1958 book, Dandelion Wine. Not bad. Not many authors have a crater named for one of their books. So you can see his accomplishments are many and diverse, and I think astounding. And it's this life fantastic that I set out to chart in my book, The Bradbury Chronicles.